Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm in my kitchen. Ta-da! So today's video, I'm going to be showing you the best iced coffee recipe ever. I'm obsessed with it. I make this iced coffee for myself every single day and I thought I would share because it's just so amazing. So here's what you'll need. Some sort of device to make coffee with. I have my Nespresso One machine, very fancy, very unnecessary. Any way to make coffee is fine. You are also going to need a coffee syrup. I love amaretto. I love almond flavored everything. So I have the torani amaretto syrup. You will also need coffee creamer. I think this works best with the Nut Pods coffee creamer. This is the caramel flavor. Any flavor will work. I just prefer Nut Pods because it is the creamiest, most delicious non-dairy coffee creamer ever, and I have a dairy sensitivity, so I cannot have normal dairy at all. So I use Nut Pods. It's amazing. And then you also need milk of some sort. I have dairy-free milk. This is the Ripple dairy-free milk, unsweetened original. Pretty good. I don't really have a preference for one type of milk over the other. I don't really like oat milk all that much just because I find that it can be like kind of gritty and make my coffee gritty. Not a fan of gritty coffee, so I use this instead. Now for your actual coffee, because I use the Nespresso One coffee maker, I have to use Nespresso pods. I really like Starbucks coffee, so this is the Starbucks Pike Place roast. The little pods look like this. They are different from K-Cup pods, but this is what works best for me. I just get these from Amazon. They're pretty cheap. I can link below the ones that I get. And then you'll need like a coffee mug and a cup to put the coffee in. I think it is better to have a separate cup from the coffee mug to actually drink your coffee out of. So I will brew my coffee in this mug. But when it comes time to like assemble the whole thing, I will assemble it in this cup because it's best to pour the coffee over ice. So the first step to making this coffee is to brew your coffee. So I'm going to flip the camera and show you my machine and how I brew my coffee. All right, so excuse my machine, it's dirty. It's dirty down there, okay? So for my machine, this opens and you put your pod in there. In the meantime, I am going to rinse this out because I will be using this in a little bit as an extra added step. It is not necessary to have any sort of milk frother. You can do this just with your brewed coffee, normal milk, normal creamer with no sort of frother, but I like to froth my milk a little bit, so that is what I'm going to do real quick. So this is probably the most vital step for making the perfect iced coffee. So what you need to do, take your coffee and you need, sorry, I'm opening the freezer. You gotta put it in the freezer for like 5 to 10 minutes. Usually what I'll do is I will come out here, brew my coffee, and then throw it in here while I make my breakfast. And then by the time I'm done like making the egg for my bagel sandwich and assembling it, it'll be like the perfect temperature. But it is super important that you let it cool down in the fridge or the freezer. If you put it in the freezer, it only needs like 5 to 10 minutes, but if you're putting it in the fridge, it'll probably need like 15 to 20. You can also brew your coffee the night before and then just let it sit in the fridge overnight. Don't put it in the freezer overnight, because if it's in the freezer overnight, it'll freeze and then your mug might also shatter from the cold in your freezer. So if you let it sit overnight, put it in the fridge, not the freezer. So I'm gonna let this sit for like 5-10 minutes and then I will be back to show you the assembly. So it's been like 4 or 5 minutes now. The coffee's still in the freezer, but I'm going to do this step. So you want to, you know, make the iced coffee. So you're going to put ice in your cup. I like to fill it up about halfway full of ice. And I know that seems like it's going to be a lot of ice, but the coffee isn't going to be completely cooled down. It's still going to be a little bit warm. So you want to make sure that you have enough ice to really cool the coffee down. And also, if any of the ice melts, you don't want it to completely take away all your ice by melting it. So I actually use a full tray of my ice when doing this, so that is completely empty now. It's been 5 or 6 minutes now. I pulled up my coffee out of the freezer and it is still a little bit warm. I can feel it. It's warm on the bottom, but I just pour it right over that ice. It might not even cover the ice completely, but that's okay because we will be putting more liquids in there. So here's when the milk comes in. This is my little milk frother, and I'm going to pour my milk in. I fill this up about halfway, maybe a little bit less than halfway, about that much milk. I would say it's probably 1/3 cup of milk. You don't have to measure it perfectly. This step now is more so about your own personal taste. I don't like my coffee to be super sweet, but I don't like it to be super strong either. I like to have more milk than my sweetener just because I don't like my coffee to be too sweet. So I'm now going to froth this. And it does come out hot, but there's so much ice and the coffee is now cooled down that it doesn't really melt the ice and it cools it down pretty immediately. It's just self-cleaning over here. But now my coffee looks like this. So next I take my creamer. This is, in my opinion, the best creamer on the market, the best non-dairy creamer. It is so thick and creamy, and it's not sweet, which I actually really like that. It does have a caramel flavor, but it's not super sweet. So I don't really measure any of my ingredients, but I give it like that much. I'm gonna say that was like a tablespoon, maybe 2, maybe 1.5 tablespoons. And then for the syrup. So this stuff is super sweet, it's super concentrated, so I don't put much of this in at all. This I actually am going to measure. So I have a teaspoon right here, and I'm going to measure out a teaspoon. I spilled, that's okay. Put a teaspoon of that in there. It smells so good. And then I like to drink my coffee with a straw, but you do need to mix it all. Now it is time to try the coffee. It is so good. It is so good. Takeaways from this video. 1, it is super important to cool your coffee down before pouring it over ice. If you don't cool it down at all, it's just going to immediately melt all the ice and your coffee is going to be super watered down and it won't be that cold. It is vital to cool your coffee down before putting it over ice. 2, I think it is really important to have a syrup. Having flavored creamer is nice if your creamer is sweetened. Maybe you don't have the extra money to spend on a syrup. It just adds a flavor that your creamer really can't. 3, if you want to cut out a step, I would recommend cutting out your milk step and just keeping the creamer and the syrup. I know there's a lot of steps to this and it's a lot of like adding weird stuff in, but it really does make the most delicious coffee. And honestly, this is kind of how they make it if you go to a real coffee shop. And I think it's so much better than Starbucks could ever be. So good. I would say the least important step in this is frothing your milk. As you can see, it doesn't add a layer of foam on top. I just like to froth my milk because I have the milk frother. So if you want to skip the milk frothing step, just dump your milk right into your coffee, and you can adjust all of the different ingredients to fit your taste. If you like your coffee to be sweeter, then add in a little bit more syrup. If you don't like your coffee to be so creamy, put in less milk or less creamer. It's really all about personal preference and personal taste, but for me, this is my perfect iced coffee. It is so delicious in every single way, and it's the amaretto syrup that really does it for me. So that is it for this video. If you liked seeing how I make my iced coffee, then give this video a like. I hope you will subscribe before you go, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye!